How's it going, people? So this is Ben again with Swift English. So now I want to introduce you guys to TOEFL writing, specifically Task 1 integrated, and you'll see it has some similarities with TOEFL Speaking Task 2 and 3 as far as notes are concerned. So you have a reading section here, and you also have another listening section, but it's not bad. All right, so let's take a look at it. So during the reading section, there's going to be a timer at the top right corner of your screen during the exam. It's going to, count down from 3 minutes, 3, 2:59, 2:58, etc. So I feel it's ample amount of time. It's not bad. Most of my, fellow students and clients, they were able to jot down their notes on time because you don't need to actually write a whole bunch of detail here, just specific pieces of information. And I'm going to elaborate on that right now. So here, you're going to have this intro paragraph, but what you want to pay attention to, so like this is a background sentence. Scientists are considering the possibility of sending humans to Mars in the coming decades. Okay, that's not a writer's opinion. It's not a thesis, so ignore it. Keep going. Although there have been successful manned missions to the moon in the 1960s and 1970s, Mars is 150 times further away from the moon than the moon is. Okay, so, all right. From Earth than the moon. So again, they're getting a little bit more specific this time, but I need a specific opinion here. Thus, the project of sending humans to Mars would require solving an array of problems the moon missions did not have to face. Well, there you go. So based on the information in this text, we can understand that the writer is basically arguing that there's going to be some serious problems if we send people to Mars, okay? And if that's the case, he or she has to now elaborate on the 3 problems here because there's going to be 3 body paragraphs and each one will be dedicated to a problem. Now, if you had a different kind of topic of writing task 1, you might have like a reading section that involves a writer's opinion about solutions towards some kind of problem. So you're going to have solution 1, solution 2, solution 3. Or in another situation, maybe the writer or author is elaborating on possible theories related to some kind of phenomenon. So if that's the case, they're going to mention like theory 1 in body paragraph 1, theory 2 in body paragraph 2, and theory 3 in the final paragraph, of course. Or maybe about advantages, disadvantages. When you read it, you'll know. You'll get good at these. All right, so one problem is da-da-da. So usually that first problem, like 90% of the time, it's going to be in that first sentence, which is a topic sentence. And then the rest of the sentences here will be clearly about that. But if you don't find that first problem mentioned in the first sentence, it can happen. Check the second sentence to see if they mention it there, because usually that's the case. All right, now once you've done that, so these are your notes so far. So problems with sending humans to Mars. This is the first problem. It involves the round trip because it takes 2 years, which is a very long time. But why is that a problem? So when we're jotting down notes, we don't need to write all this, but we want to quickly skim read this, and then we say, oh, okay, basically the spaceships, the space vehicles, they have a limited amount of space or room on board. So we would write that down here. Cargo's capacity of the space vehicles is too limited to put food, water, and oxygen on board, at least sufficient amounts, right? So now you come to the second problem, which is in the second body paragraph, like basically paragraph 3. And here you're gonna again write like prop, maybe PROB number 2, right? Keep it short for yourself, just some symbol for yourself, or just number 2. And then write that second topic sentence. Because the argument here is that zero gravity environment or zero gravity atmosphere, whatever, is going to be a serious problem for the astronauts. And then here, see if you can find like a specific reason for it. If there's not a specific reason, and usually you'll see like because, since, as, if that's the case. Or maybe they might have a specific example of that. So if there's an example of that, write that down. If there isn't an example, if there isn't a specific reason, maybe there's some kind of important detail kind of connected to that. and you could write, that down instead. So here I have this bit of information right there. All right. And finally, lastly, you do the same thing with the final body paragraph, right? So finally, just write number 3. So what is problem number 3? They're exposed to dangerous or high levels of space radiation. So you would, write that down really quickly in a short way, and then see if there's like at least one sentence connected to that. Here, I actually noticed 2 kinds of supporting details related to that. So here, they mentioned the Earth's magnetic field will be missing or absent at that point when they reach interplanetary space. So, they're exposed to these harmful rays. But the other issue is, even if they did try to come up with a solution, like let's say constructing a shield or some kind of shelter or protective device, right? It's not feasible because it's just too heavy. They can't transport it with them. So I'm going to take those 2 relating points and put them right here. And maybe when I type up my response, I might use one of them or even both of them. It depends. Okay. So now you come to the listening phase. So here you can expect that the professor will probably, so if you're dealing with a problem style reading, they're going to offer solutions to those problems. But if it was the opposite, like the inverse, let's say the reading was discussing 3 solutions to some existing problem, then in the listening, the lecture, the professor will say, oh, actually, those solutions expanded on in the reading actually suck. They have problems, they have flaws, they have weaknesses, they have shortcomings. And then he's going to mention it like problem 1, problem 2, problem 3. So it depends on the kind of task 1 writing you get. But in the reading section, if they were going over theories, then in the listing, they're going to mention why those theories are, not valid, not sound. Or if you have like advantages in the reading section, then in the listening section, they'll talk about disadvantages of whatever they're discussing. So it's almost always the opposite 90% of the time. In very rare cases, do they agree? Okay, so at this point, your eyes is going to jump to the left side of your piece of paper to see what that first problem is about, just briefly, 1 or 2 seconds. And then you're going to come back to the right side and begin like writing notes that you hear from the professor. So, okay. So here you could see this was their counter argument. So the first sentence was kind of a trap. A trip to Mars will definitely be challenging. So it sounds like they were agreeing with the writer or the author for just a moment, but then when they throw in a word like but, although, while, or yet, or nevertheless, nonetheless, however, it's like they have a change in opinion almost. So scientists have proposed solutions to the problems the reading selection discusses. So yeah, now your focus is on solutions, so you should already have that written down. 1 word, that's it. So now here, you could hear what they have to say about that. So this has to be about the first solution. First of all, food, water, and oxygen. Well, astronauts can use hydroponics. So even if you don't know how to spell this word, it's really technical, it's jargon, right? Just do your best, it's fine. And then later on, you can kind of define, oh yeah, they use something called hydroponic, panic. Maybe you misspelled it, mispronounced it, right? It's okay, even if you really misspelled it, but you're able to explain what it is. That's the important thing here, okay? So a spelling mistake for a technical word like this that wasn't even mentioned in the reading part, absolutely fine. Just do your best. And then you would say, yeah, it's a kind of method that does this, or it's a kind of strategy to do this, whatever, technique. So here, it's a technique for growing plants, right? So you would write that down. And at this point, kind of like task 2, 3, 4 speaking sections where they had these listening sections, you're kind of doing the same thing. Again, you're going line by line by line, jotting down content phrases, right? Content words, and keeping those phrases really short. So 3 to 4 words, mostly nouns and verbs, sometimes adjectives and adverbs, and you're going line by line till you move to another section. So sometimes what they do, in that first counter argument, when they're near the end, they might have like a result sentence like so, therefore, hence, consequently. When you hear this, usually you don't have to write it because they already kind of explained the entire thing. They're just kind of reiterating that point. In this case, they're reiterating the solution to that problem. So now you can get ready to anticipate this. This is going to appear right away. So second, number 2, the effects of zero gravity. So if you look at the left side of your piece of paper, you saw the problem there was involving zero gravity. So you can kind of anticipate this, expect that they're going to discuss this. It's very predictable. So again, line by line, you're going to take your notes. And if they use conjunctions like and, but, so, because, or transitions like, for example, therefore, in fact, right? Also, try to write those down. Just have like a symbol that's ready to go for them. Like for example, I just put EX to illustrate EX. But if it's something like likewise, additionally, maybe also, you could use like a plus sign, So be creative. All right. And then you would do the same thing for the very last one. Now, what you're going to do is, you have your notes ready. You have your reading notes from the left side and the listening notes on the right side. And you're going to use that information and integrate it to come up with your response. So this will be the question or something similar, akin to this. Summarize the points made in the lecture. And they always say something like this in the directions, being sure to explain how they respond to specific concerns. So if you weren't 100% sure by now that they were referring to problems here, well, now you know, because concerns is synonymous to problems. Now, if it was more like a neutral kind of topic or situation, maybe they might say like respond to the specific points presented in the reading passage, So maybe it's something more like differences in opinion instead of like a problem solution kind of style. All right, so the questions will help you a little bit as well. So here, this is a template. Both the text and lecture are discussing whether you can memorize this and then just mention what the issue is about. Scientists should send humans to Mars. All right. Now the second sentence of your intro paragraph, and keep in mind you're going to have 4 paragraphs. So you're going to have whereas to show the difference between what the two sides have to say about this particular issue. So the author contends that there are 3 serious problems to consider, to think about, right? The professor basically, however, right, argues that there are effective solutions to each of these obstacles, these problems. I wanted to paraphrase, so I used like a different word here, difficulties or whatever's appropriate. So yeah, I use whereas to indicate or show that difference. You could use while too, but less people use whereas. I just want us to be a little bit more competitive come exam time. All right, so now you're gonna type up your body paragraph 1. So obviously it's about the first problem, just introduce it in the first sentence. The first problem concerns having enough supplies to last a round trip for 2 years. So this green here is basically my template phrase for this one, but you could use different ones. It's up to you. This is just an idea. So now what I do is a little bit different than what many people will tell you to do. So most people, they just go into the reading information and give it 2 sentences. But instead, since the exam gives more weight toward the listening information, I usually like to proceed to this next. So this part's from the reading, whatever the reading claimed, right? Okay, this is the first problem. Then here, I want to go into the counter argument to that problem right away and basically explain this in 2 or 3 sentences on average. You might get 4 if you have a lot of information, if it's really, packed. And then you're going to add 1 sentence or 2, but I think 1 is sufficient, it suffices, that shows, more specific information about what the writer or author had to say. So like, however, so they had like a different view on the topic. The writer notes that the spacemen, so astronauts, do not have sufficient supplies for the 2-year journey and is completely aware of the concept of hydroponics. That's it. Just tie it in. What did we understand? All right, so then you go into the second body paragraph, pretty much the same thing. So you want to introduce the second problem because we have a problem solution style essay here. So the second issue, so issue here, so issue can have different meanings in English, but here I'm referring to problem basically. The second issue involves the dangerous effects of zero gravity on the bodies of astronauts. There you go. So now you want to look at your listening information, the lecture notes, and explain the counter argument in 2 to 3 sentences. The speaker points out that astronauts have already spent many months orbiting the Earth in zero gravity environments. In fact, they were able to overcome the effects by exercising regularly to prevent losing potential muscle mass. Additionally, they were smart enough to take vitamins and minerals like calcium, which does a powerful job of slowing down the decline in bone density. The passage, on the other hand, simply does not seem to mention these possible solutions to deal with zero gravity effects. Got it. So here, again, you want to show what the writer or author had to say. And you could paraphrase them sometimes. So here I just mentioned the material instead, the passage, article, right? On the other hand, so I inverted this. I could say on the other hand, the passage, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. But I wanted to just add more spontaneity, complexity by just doing a different sentence syntax this time, okay? So I wanted to vary the grammatical structure. I don't want to be too predictable because the examiner, to some extent, they don't like that. They want to see diverse sentence types here. All right, so the final concern. So I could say problem because I already used issue. I could go back and forth, or I could use a new word again, so up to you. The final concern, the final worry is regarding astronauts getting exposed to solar radiation. Well, there you go. So that's what the reading was talking about. And now here, I want to mention my counter argument. The lecture states that the sun emits dangerous amounts only when it's active. As a result, practice using your transition devices, guys, because you want to show off some of them in the body paragraphs. You don't want to have just sentences that have no transitions at all. Kind of risky, but at the same time, you don't want to have like sentences here where every single one of them has a transition, only if it's necessary. If that's the case, yeah, maybe they all have it. But if it's not the case, if it's just a regular sentence you need in some part of this listing segment, then yeah, just have a regular sentence. So mix up your complex sentences, your long sentences, your short sentences. They want to see variation here. In that case, they can hide in the small shelter until the danger is gone, until it passes by. Nonetheless, so this is like however. I could say however again, but I wanted to use something new. The article never considered this possibility to handle the issue, basically, deal with it, right? Now, common question a lot of students ask me. So, a lot of test takers, they ask me, do I have to have a conclusion? Number one, short answer, no. You don't have to. But they want to know, okay, if I don't add the conclusion, what else can I do if there's like 1 or 2 minutes left? Well, if you think you're the kind of person who makes tons of mistakes, this is actually better than adding a conclusion. Just go back and fix your work. So go fix those typos. If you typed up the wrong words in inappropriate sentences, go back and edit them. Use the right words if you recognize them. So if you have lots of mistakes and you fix as many of them as you can, if you were lucky enough to have 1 or 2 final minutes, that's going to have a much better impact on your score than just adding a conclusion for the sake of boosting your word count. Yeah, word count might help a little bit, but if you're making tons of mistakes, it's not going to do anything for your score, to be honest. So that's my advice. Unless you're perfectionistic and you really know the quality of your English skills and you really feel like you understand this section of TOEFL and you really, for the most part, didn't make too many mistakes, then okay, go for it. Add the conclusion. To conclude and conclusion, and then, both the reading and speaker just restate what that issue was about. Had a serious discussion on whether sending people to Mars is worthwhile. Is it worth it? And that's it. So this is just one example of writing task one. In the future, I'll probably show you guys more examples of this because a lot of test takers sometimes struggle with this section. It is a little bit confusing for those who are just simply not used to it. Anyway, so leave comments down below. Please do like, share, and subscribe this, and I'll see you in the future.